2, 1.
Welcome. We are back. Another episode of Blue Collar Green Pockets. Got a great show tonight. The usual crew. I've got Chuck Wilson, Dave Jones, and I'm Jared Britt coming again as your host. We're going to go right into introducing our guests. This is going to be our media edition. So they're doing TV and production, all kinds of stuff. They'll tell you all about it. First of all, we've got coming out of Virginia Beach is Cheryl Tan. She's the CEO of Cheryl Tan Media. We've got Chris Lane. He's the video producer. He's also out of Virginia Beach. Peyton Brown used to be in Virginia Beach, but she's in Atlanta, Georgia now. And she's a grip. She's going to tell you all about that because I just learned myself. Starting out, Cheryl, we're going to start with you and just give us an idea of what you do, where you've been, how you got into the business. We're just going to let you talk. Go ahead.
Oh my! How much time do you have?
we got an hour. We can go long for you. This is going to be a great show. We'll go as long as it takes.
So I my career has been primarily in television news. So I went to the University of Virginia, and after that, I got a job in television in Richmond. And my first job in TV was as a tape editor way back when they had videotapes at the ABC station in Richmond.
You just lost half our audience.
I remember.
But you knew this already. You knew this already, right? But I started out as a tape editor in television, and then from there moved into an on-air position in Macon, Georgia. So I've worked at several TV stations up and down the East Coast, ending up in Virginia Beach in 2003. So I've been here for quite a while. And now I have my own company, and I help business owners and entrepreneurs, experts use video more effectively. Okay.
And Cheryl did my videos as well for my business, along with Chris, the video producer. So we're going to get right to Chris. Chris, tell us about yourself real quick. What do you do?
Hey, so I'm a video producer out in Virginia Beach. Thanks for having me on the show. This is awesome. I went to school at James Madison University and studied media arts and design. So from there, I got into shooting video mainly for live events, like big corporate events where they have a keynote speaker, and everyone comes to learn new training. That was like really my first gig out of college, was running camera at that. But it sort of evolved into a mix of a wide range of video, anywhere from live streaming events with a production company in DC to now where I'm getting to work with great companies like Cheryl Tan Media and other organizations to tell the stories of local organizations, businesses, and nonprofits.
Great. And Peyton, talk to us. What are you doing?
I am a grip. I work in the grip department. There's the key grip, who's the head of the grip department, and then the best boy, who's his Robin to the Batman. And then there's just a grip, or a third, or a hammer, some people call us. There's typically 3 to 4 on a set. And we help move camera and rig camera, and we also help shape and diffuse and color light. Yeah.
And what's some of the recent shows you've done?
My resume includes Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Ozark. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Now, I have a question for you. To do that stuff, did you go to college for that, or was there a special training, or did you learn on the job?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Yeah, for you. I'm sorry, Peyton. Yeah.
I am actually a second generation. So my dad is a key grip, and I fought for years. I went to college. I have a degree in social sciences.
Which has nothing to do with grip.
That has nothing to do with anything I do, except that I can talk to anybody, and I'm really like the personable part of what I do, and just general, like, I think being educated has its benefits on set. Like, I know when to stop talking and when to listen to harsh instruction and take that with a grain of salt. And I feel like having an education is a benefit.
Okay.
Dave is still learning to stop talking.
It's a big deal when talking can ruin this, a take, and that's a huge deal when you're on sets with big people.
Chris, what kind of what kind of schooling and all did you do? Because you're behind the scenes guy. You're doing all kinds of editing and computer stuff. What all did you do to get into that, bud?
So in school, it was sort of like a broad level of a bunch of different things. So we had like one or two classes on script writing, one or two classes on shooting, one or two classes on editing. So you sort of got not a really deep look at any one area, but just like a general overview of everything. And that's great in a lot of ways because you feel like you can poke your head into all these different avenues of video production. But in some ways, you don't get like the depth of color grading that someone who focuses all their time on just making the edit look the best it can by really tweaking all the colors and stuff. So there's like hyper specialized skills like that are a little bit different, whereas I got more of a broad education.
And what school did you go to? What kind of schooling was that?
I went to JMU, James Madison University in Virginia.
Okay. I was because I put a link up. I noticed that even our Virginia Beach Vocational Center offers a 2-year program, 6 credits, I guess, towards college. Would that be a good start? I mean, before you even went to that, is that something you would like to have done before, or would you recommend that for someone that's trying to do what you're doing?
I think for anybody that's looking to get into this, you definitely want to get a threshold of skills under your belt. So if a vocational school might be a great option to do that. And I think that they probably can be a fast route to learning your skills. If school is just something that you don't have time or budget to, there's tons of resources on YouTube and you can start to teach yourself that way. I think it's just how quickly do you want to learn? Do you want to totally immerse yourself in the education, or is it something that you're going to do slowly over time?
Okay. Cheryl, as far as being in front of the camera.
Well, I did not plan on this career. I'm an English major, so I was planning
Me too.
Oh yeah, awesome, Chuck. I mean, this was not something I planned from a very early age. I went to school, and it was a tough job market coming out. And at the time, I was planning on working in the radio, like in radio news and that kind of thing. So I wasn't planning on being in front of the camera in that way. But one of my mentors, and having mentors is so critical to helping you figure out where you want to go, because they see a different perspective of you. And one of my mentors said, I really think that you should look at a career in front of the camera. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever that means. And I had no experience in TV news. I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to shoot. I didn't know how to do any of the pieces that you would consider essential for being in front of the camera. But I learned, and that's why as my first job, it was as a tape editor, because it was very technical. It was completely different from what I'd ever done before. There was no writing. It was not in front of the camera. It was a job that I was able to get right away, right out of college with no experience, because they were able to train me. And from there, I made a tape. So I made a resume tape with the help of the people in the news station. So what Peyton was saying is you kind of learn how to talk with people and you build relationships. And when you do that, especially in a newsroom, people want to help you. So they helped me create what I needed to create so I could get my first on-air job in Macon, Georgia.
Because, Chuck took English. He was an English major, and he also made a tape, but it was a little different.
We're not gonna talk about that one.
Oh my God.
You didn't think that.
He just violated our confidentiality agreement.
That's right.
Well, I have a question. Cheryl, maybe you can answer this. All my life, I've been wondering about this question here. What is the difference between a director and a producer? Can you explain to us what that is?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
can somebody do it for me?
I can absolutely. And these guys can too as well. Chris and Peyton.
Anybody can take it. I don't care. Cheryl was talking. Whoever you want. Somebody.
So I'll go and then you guys can definitely chime in. But in the news world, so in the TV news world, the producer is the person who puts the show together. So is in charge of the rundown, is in charge of, if you think about it, you're in charge of what comes out of people's mouths. So
the topics of the show.
The scripting, the flow of the show. So if you're going to start with weather or you're going to start with another type of story, it's that producer's job to make that flow happen throughout the show. The director is the one who technically makes it happen. So without a director, you actually won't see anything. The director is the one who is switching the cameras from one to another, the one that makes sure that everyone can be heard, the one that makes sure that if there are graphics that are covering some sort of part of your show for a purpose, that person makes that happen. So the director is the person who technically makes it happen, and the producer is the one who puts the show together, just in terms of like timing and spacing and just putting the flow of the show together.
So they're different jobs, but they both are equally important, it sounds like.
Hugely important, and they have to work together.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
That was a good question, Dave, because that was good clarification. I wasn't sure about that myself.
Yeah, you always hear it. I've just never heard anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck, you have something to say. I can always tell.
Yeah, you can
Smoke.
feel the vibe.
I can smell the smoke. That bottom beard starts to move a little bit.
Yeah. Well, as I'm looking at social media and the direction of, I mean, it's evolved, and especially maybe this whole COVID thing is bringing things more into the light that would have taken longer. End up seeing, an increase in the quality of stuff that people are putting on the on social media, and that it's just becoming almost essential from a business standpoint. What are you folks seeing in that regard? You're directly involved, and I think Peyton, you've been, because of COVID, you're not working because, and so it's like social media is taking over the role that new TV series and so on used to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the social media thing hasn't really impacted me per se. Like, I'm grips. I don't feel like can, as a job, contribute really to social media besides like production value of whatever's being filmed. But I will say, as a whole, it's gone from working on a TV show to you're working like, oh, this is for Apple, or like this is for Nintendo. Like, the people you're working for are more digital, more internet-y. Netflix, a lot of Amazon Prime, a lot of things you can find online versus, a show you would find on a network.
And Cheryl, what are you seeing in that regard, the evolution of social media and the quality of video and presentation?
Do you mean that the quality has deteriorated, or people are focusing more on social media? And I guess I'm just wondering what the focus then of what people are seeing is it just changing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think, I guess my observation is that what people are putting out on social media, the quality is increasing.
Oh, gotcha.
That's because we hire Cheryl Tan and Chris Lane to do that. That's why it's good.
So what you're saying is people are stepping up, and I mean, that's for sure. As someone who is now on the business side of things, What I noticed about 4 or 5 years ago, just really 4 or 5 years ago, and it could have, of course, been before that, but people really have the chance to, like, with their smartphone, have their own platforms. And it's just gotten easier and easier to do that. The problem with that, and it's not really a problem, it's just that there's a lot more competition. There's a lot more, there's more of an impetus to get it right, because so many people have a smartphone, or they have the ability to go live, and they're creating their own platforms, they're creating their own shows, which I think is phenomenal. And I help them with that. But that's where, you know, you have that increased noise, and where finding your own audience is so important.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Chris, what have you seen in that regard?
Yeah, I think, I mean, this goes in line with what's already been said, but a lot of the defined roles, I think, are beginning to be blurred. So where it sounds like Peyton works on really high-end sets, you know, where there's distinct roles, and there's a producer, a director, a grip, a camera operator, a director of photography. And then for smaller productions, or like nonprofits whose budgets might be smaller, I'm finding that there might not be the ability to hire all these individual roles. So it might mean that I'm shooting and editing, or that I'm shooting, but I'm able to bring a sound guy on with me this time. Or if there's a bigger budget, maybe I'm just helping oversee as someone else is shooting, and then I'm editing on the back end. So there's a lot more flexibility and blurred lines with the roles.
Yeah, it seems like everybody is putting things out. You know, like individuals are with their iPhone or whatever, and their skills are increasing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also building, I think, a new career path that you guys are on the edge of. With that's going to continue over the coming months and years in a direction that wasn't really foreseeable, I don't think, not too long ago.
More businesses can now do videos and such. Like me, we're not putting it on TV, but we can easily put it on social media. So we're hiring people like Cheryl and Chris to put these things together. And like they said, they can put it all together. Depends on how much you want to spend and how many more people they get into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they're doing the whole thing. I mean, it looks professional and all. It's just not on Channel 3 like Cheryl.
Hey, Peyton, I got a question for you. Where is there much advancement in your field? Like you're a grip now. How long have you been a grip? 5 years?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so where does a grip go after 5 years? Do you keep being a grip forever, or is there someplace else? Or I don't know how your hierarchy works there within your industry.
There are some people that are 65-year-old grips doing what I do, and then but a lot of people, like a very common question is, where do you want to go? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you want to do in this business? Like, what do you really want to do? Because I would say that my job is pretty entry level. Anybody can do what I do. It does not take a college degree. It takes just hard work and learning, and
you got to be able to have a lot of situational awareness, I would think, in that job, right?
Yes.
Know what's going on around you all the time.
There's a lot going on, and my job, honestly, is a lot of heavy lifting. And so there's that aspect of it too. There's a athleticism that is kind of necessary. And working in, Cheryl can probably attest to, the Georgia weather is not easy to work in, especially outdoors in the summertime. So there's that. And then I was gonna also say, Dave, that a director and a producer on The Walking Dead are two completely different jobs, so necessary, but they are like opposite ends of the spectrum as far as what they do and their importance and who they're in charge of and what they're in charge of. It's crazy.
Is
There's
one of
so many-
is one of them over the other, or are they parallel with each other? They
a
equal?
producer is definitely in charge of has firing abilities over the director.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, in the movies, a producer is one of the money folks, right?
Yeah,
Is that-
I was gonna say. I mean, I don't want to be so frank, but that is exactly what a when a producer comes on set is when you know you need to be quiet and go in a corner and look and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
So we have a viewer asking what it would take to get into doing what you're doing. What advice would you give someone to do that, to be a grip?
A lot of my business in general is a lot about who you know. And I know that's, I don't know, that's hard to say, but it's a lot about who you know. A lot of my friends went to SCAD. I know that's like a big, they have a relationship with IATSE, which is the union that I'm a part of. So they have like internship programs where you can work on shows for a certain amount of time and try different departments out. And yeah, so I would, if school isn't an option, I would try to get involved, I guess, online. I again don't really have a big online presence, but forums of people that know, or like
personality and drive is what you really need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how to say, like, you've got to be able to work really, really hard and long hours.
So what keeps you doing that?
I'm one of very few females in my department doing what I'm doing, and that in itself keeps me doing what I'm doing because I feel like I'm really good and I can be an inspiration to other females that feel like for whatever reason this isn't a department that females can be in when it absolutely is. And there are 100% there are benefits to having a female on a grip crew. There are times and situations where you just need a female, and
attention to detail, right?
I mean, or if there's times when sets are closed, which means if there's naked women and they are uncomfortable having men on set or behind a monitor, even they'll take every single man off of a stage and tell them to wait outside. And then I'm the only representative for my department. So what if something goes wrong? I have to be there. So situations like that are really particular and small, or if you're like me, 5'1", small places or sets that are really, really tiny, like a bedroom, or if you're shooting in a closet, I'm a good person to be in that room because I don't take up a lot of space.
Are you in a union of some kind?
She said, yeah.
I
Is that
am,
what
yeah.
you said? Yeah.
I'm in the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees. So IATSE is what we're called.
Rolls right off the tongue.
That's an easy one. What about you, Chris? Do you have employees in your business? Or are you like a one-man band, or are you a camera for hire? I mean, what are you?
Chris does it all.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's sort of like a one-man band operation, with the ability to expand and contract with other like talented freelancers in the area. So there's times when it might just be me, or it might be me working under Cheryl, who's really got a relationship with a business, and she's doing like broader coaching on media and how to like put yourself out and gain an audience. But there's also times when I'll be shooting and I need to bring on a sound operator, or I need to work with another editor because another project's going to start right away and I won't have time to edit this one. So knowing, it's been said before, but relationships and knowing who around you has different skills and talents so that you can build up a team when you need to, but go lean when you're working with like a client or an organization that doesn't have as large of a budget, or maybe not as large of a need for the full team.
I bet in your business, Chris, that's a performance-based business. Like Cheryl's out there in her business, and people like Cheryl know who the good ones are.
Oh yeah.
So you sound like you must have a good reputation in your area doing this. It sounds to me like
Well,
you're the guy. It sounds like.
There's definitely a lot of skilled folks in the Virginia Beach area. We're fortunate, but it's nice to be included in that. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Well, I think there needs to be a breakup of, I mean, I call it the AV world. Yeah.
In my mouth.
This is Gary, the tech guy.
Show us your hands, please. Show us your hands.
IT department. I'm a big
Behind the
Yeah.
camera.
You got finger puppets above.
I've worked in AV since I was 16. My first job was in broadcasting for 2 radio stations and a TV station. And the one thing I would like to see highlighted for people is, it looks like it's written off as, TV media and TV production, but there's so many different avenues you can take. Like for editing, for instance, I think of like the B movies, like the Roger Corman films, like no budget, pretty terrible script, but then it's on to the editors to actually make this awful movie look halfway decent. And so you need to have these specialized skills, or the audio work, or you need good direction, or you need the grips to be able to go and be able to get into places and position the camera right, or put the gels on right. And these are all very very succinct and special areas that people need to focus on. And I don't know if you guys can talk into the different subjects that people can get into and the importance of why these different facets of media production are important.
It's basically all the different jobs.
All the avenues. Who can talk about the different avenues? Like every industry we have on here every week has like a subculture in it where you can go down all these different paths. Maybe Cheryl, you can tell us a little bit about that.
I can, absolutely. And I don't know if anyone's asking if anyone is interested in moving into the world of TV news. It's
actually, we do have a question. Somebody is asking you, how do they get into TV news? There's a question.
It is the best thing I ever did. It is the best thing I ever did. And it was, I didn't get paid well. I traveled, I'm from Northern Virginia, so I had to move away from home. But it was the best thing I ever did. So there are opportunities. They're not high paying in the very beginning. They're just not. And so to Peyton's point, you have to work hard. You work nights, weekends, and holidays. So that sounds really sexy. But there are opportunities to move up. And so there's a little bit of who if you're trying to get into TV news, but a little less. So there are openings, as I mentioned, nights, weekends, and holidays, that cuts some people out. They just don't want to do it, no matter the age. That's why you get a lot of younger people who start in production in TV news, is because maybe they don't have families. But some people just are not willing to take that on, nights, weekends, and holidays. But that's usually where you're going to start. And what I'll tell you is it's fun. So you can walk in and you could learn how to edit. You can run a camera. You can run teleprompter. You can do a little bit of shadow directing. You can, and so you work your way up certain levels. It starts out as a production assistant, and they see where you might fit in. A lot of times it starts with the most difficult shifts. So you're talking mornings, which start at like 1 a.m, or weekend nights, which start at 2 on a Saturday and a Sunday, and you're not out until like midnight. So the shifts aren't great, but if you are interested in moving up.
And how much do those pay, that entry right there? How much does that pay roughly for those nights, weekends? I mean, I'm sure it's been a while.
It's been a while, but my first job I made $9.50 an hour.
Well, that schedule sounds like it's really good for your liver, though. I mean,
I didn't do much. Let me tell you that.
When I started out making minimum wage, but I absolutely loved it.
So Cheryl, like this is something that's always interested me. These guys tell me I have a face for radio, but this TV thing has always interested me. So when you're in TV news like that, so the producer is he's assigning stories, right, to people. He's saying, you go down to the school and you talk to the coach that's been there 40 years and do a story. Is that basically how it works?
Well, actually, so the production side is different from the news side.
Okay.
And so I'll get to your point, I promise, Dave. But like,
It's okay.
if you were interested, because some people, they go into the production side kind of like I did, knowing that I wanted to one day potentially be a reporter. You go in and you make relationships and you get your experience, and you learn some technical skills. Because in my first job in television, I had to shoot, write, and edit. So I had to do all of those things. I just had no experience before starting in that first television station as a tape editor. So I got my experience there, but I knew I was going to try and transition into the newsroom. When you're in the newsroom, and to your point, Dave, about producing and how you get stories, reporters have to come to the table with stories. They have to build relationships with people in the community. They call people who might potentially have news stories that their producers find worthy. And there's a morning meeting for the reporters that work during the day, and then there's an afternoon meeting for the reporters that work at night. And it's where the reporters pitch stories. They'll say, "Hey, Dave, I think this is a great story today. One of my sources said X, Y, and Z. And this is why I think it will be great." And so everybody goes around, and then the producer or one of the managers ultimately makes that decision about what will go on that newscast that day.
Wow, that's interesting. What do you think, Chuck?
Very interesting. I want to go back a little bit to the changes in the way that we are receiving information. I mean, as Cheryl, you're talking about wanting to be in front of the camera, and it was the standard old now way of presenting the news. It's, what's happened? I mean, how would you describe what we're seeing now as far as how information is shared?
It's when I first started, we had one 6 p.m. Actually, it was a 10 p.m. show. I worked at a Fox affiliate. So in the very beginning, my first TV station had 1.5 hour show. And now news stations, even that station that I worked at way back then, 7 hours a day, 7 hours of news per day. And then you have social media to also compete with that. And it's a challenge, right? To make sure that you get the news out in a timely manner, in a way that serves both of your audiences. And news stations have had to do that. They've had to make sure that they honor the news viewers, the ones that still watch at 5:30, and 6 p.m. And then the ones who are also online, who depend on the website updates, who maybe also depend on updates on Facebook, which again, when I first started, it didn't exist. So in the very beginning, it was like, what is this? Like Facebook? We put news on Facebook? What is that? And now it would be unheard of not to. So, I mean, we're all adapting as we're kind of watching it happen. And especially now with COVID, and we're all at home and watching the news more. I think we're more ready to catch the news as it comes out. I think and I'm watching as a viewer, by the way, like as a viewer now, where I think a little more impatient. It's like, where is it? How come it's not right here at with the snap of my finger? And the reality is it still takes some time. It still takes
an evolutionary responsibility on the editor, wouldn't you think?
I'm sorry?
Like a responsibility on the editor, because you gotta take these things, what used to be an hour-long news, you gotta put in a small clip to be able to catch people's interest, because it's that attention span.
It's more headlines these days, I think is what you're saying.
The attention span is
it's all about the headline.
And it's a different skill. It's a different skill that we're honing, to be honest. And it's interesting, my kids are, they're used to the camera because, I mean, they have a YouTube channel, right? So
I mean, what kid doesn't?
Who doesn't? And it's just really interesting how they consume news, and it's all on their phone. And, we watch the news at 6 o'clock and they're like, why? Why bother?
Saw that too.
Hey, Chris.
I saw that already, Mom.
Yeah, twice.
I have a Chris, I have a question for you because that sounds like an interesting line of work you're in within this realm here. If you had a high school kid out there, let's say, that was sort of thinking about something like that, okay, it's thinking about getting into that camera work that you're into and stuff, really likes the AV type stuff and all that. Where could you lead him? I mean, is that a job he could go out and like pull cords around for somebody or hold stuff, or is there any opportunities where people could start to learn to get their feet wet?
Yeah, you certainly could. It seems like things are changing so rapidly that I would almost say, no, I think I would say, get your hands on whatever camera you can, if that's what you want to do, and you want to use a camera to tell stories, and just start telling stories while you have freedom of time, maybe some freedom of finances if you're still at home. Just go look what's right outside your front door, like what's in your neighborhood, what is the new restaurant, or what protest is happening. Go find the story that's right in front of you and find a way to capture it and tell it with the camera you have. And then if you just start putting it out there, that's the beauty of social media, right? Anyone can just start putting it out there. If you're putting out a well-crafted story that people want to know more about, people are going to just come to you and they're going to ask you how you can help them tell their story.
That's good.
That's good
That was
advice.
beautifully said.
Yeah, I like that.
Peyton, why don't you give us your 3 cents on that too?
Well, basically what I was going to say is that social media has taken over my world so much that we are not even allowed to have our phones on set anymore.
I can see that.
We sign a document that's like 75 pages thick, saying that if we are ever guilty of you name it,
Leave it at that.
it
Right?
it could be as little as your location, having your location on when you're filming at a certain things like that people could hack into, or
Yes, internet sleuths that are trying to figure out what you're working on, get all the inside information on the latest stuff.
I mean, my sister is working or was working on a Marvel show, and she was telling me that in order to work on this show, she had to give them her phone, and they marvelized her phone, whatever that meant. Her phone, for however long she's on the show or beyond, because I don't know how that works, and I don't know, but her phone is now marvelized, whatever that means.
It's superpowers.
Crazy.
Yes.
Wow, that is
They're
crazy.
watching, they're watching.
I have a couple employees I'd like to do that too.
Yeah,
No
I
kidding.
understand.
Probably a couple you don't want to.
Peyton, do you see some? This is like the People Magazine thing coming out at me right now. Do you see like some big stars on some of these sets sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do they tell you you're allowed to talk to them, or you're not supposed to say a word, or what?
It depends. You can tell typically who is approachable because they will approach you. And some are really not, and some are like your very stereotypical, like in their own world movie star, like kind of lost at sea type. And then some are like completely normal humans that just are doing that. This is like their job, or their parents were directors, or like,
I had this vision of the director chair, and then the big star there, like used to be on the cartoons, and somebody wiping their brow and feeding them. And all this stuff.
I will say I don't know if I'm allowed to say bad words, but for every a-hole in this business, and there are a lot of them, Jason Bateman,
he's the one I wanted to ask about.
who stars in Ozark, is the epitome of a down-to-earth guy's
that's awesome.
guy.
I love that dude.
Nicest man.
I love him. Yeah.
My wife's me and my wife, like anything with him, like, yeah, we'll watch that. He's awesome.
The character that he plays in everything he's in, which is the same dude, that's
Nails it.
Jason Bateman in real life.
That's
Really?
awesome.
He does not play any part. He's a cool dude. He is so quick-witted. He is funny. If he breaks a take, he just turns around and makes it, jokes with the camera guy, and then gets right back to work. And he just makes work fun. He's a great.
What was that series when he was a kid? Like what was the one I used to watch it when I was a kid all the time? It was like the first series he was ever in. It was before your time, probably. Cheryl, back me up, Cheryl.
I know.
It was our time.
I don't know.
all in the family.
No, he wasn't all in the.
No, it was
It was
no.
the high school one or whatever.
Yeah, he was awesome. I've been
Silver
watching.
Spoons? Was it Silver
No.
Spoons?
That
It
was
wasn't
like
Freaks and Geeks.
Well, there was a
it?
Justine Bateman. Is that his sister?
Just
Yes.
Justin
Yes.
or Justine or something? He was in one of those.
He kind of disappeared for a little while, but he's been back with a vengeance in the last.
Yeah,
10
that's
years.
back when you were watching Seventh Heaven and all those.
I don't even know what Seventh Heaven is, but I totally.
My son's watching this, and he knows Seventh Heaven. He's
I have IT working on that series. That series, we got to know the answer to that. It's going to drive me crazy.
We know.
No, it wasn't Silver Spoon. Somebody just put that in. It wasn't.
Oh, well.
Definitely wasn't Silver Spoon.
Facts of Life, maybe.
No.
Okay.
No?
All right.
No. Maybe. No.
Looking it up.
IT's working on that.
I think it's Silver
Let's-
Spoons. But
If it
okay.
wasn't the Flintstones or Casper the Friendly Ghost, I don't know what it was.
What's this? Maybe it was Silver Spoon.
Was it Little House on the Prairie?
No.
He was in Little House on the Prairie.
Hey.
IT's fired.
Silver Spoon.
I knew IT.
was Silver
Chris,
Spoon.
can you come be my IT?
It was Silver Spoon.
Anytime.
well, I want to get back to a subject that we or a
Was it
topic
Silver
that we always include, and that's we're asking a little bit about what kept you folks doing what you do, and especially talking about how little you were paid, Cheryl, and Peyton, you were talking about the crazy hard work, and we refer to it as the P word,
We're
passion.
getting to the P words.
Getting to the P word. You definitely must have had some passion about what you do in order to hang in there and have some long range expectations or hopes. Start with Peyton.
Yeah, I keep going because I do some really, really, really cool stuff, and I work with some really great people. The film business is a really, I don't mean to sound cliche, but it does, the show you're on typically becomes a family. Yeah, I do it because at the end of a week where you've worked 16-hour days every week, usually on the end of that week is when they blow something up, or some car gets flipped into a building, or everybody's super tired and grouchy, but something really cool is about to happen, so we're all just gonna hang in there and get through it together. And like I said, this family dynamic really helps when you can look next to you and you know that the person next to you is gone through the same treachery that you've gone through all week. That's that makes it worth it too. You're standing next to 6 or 8 people that you care a lot about, that you spend 80 hours a week with. They become your family, and then you get to watch some really, really cool stuff happen.
Chris, how do you find what gets you passionate about what you do?
Well, first off, no day is ever the same. One day could be shooting, one day could be editing, one day could be talking with someone about a story that they want to tell. But I think it comes back to story again. I mean, that's a cliche, overused term probably, but getting to peek into so many different worlds. Like, I really love hearing how someone started a business, or how someone overcame maybe a traumatic situation from their childhood, or how someone started this nonprofit that's digging wells in a third world country. All these stories are just amazing to me. So getting to peek into them, and then also have the privilege of help shaping how they're told.
Cheryl, what about you? How about you?
Well, when I was in television news, it was really the most incredible experience, really, to be able to, as Peyton was talking about, really create a family type experience with people you worked with is, I realize now, is not usual. It doesn't happen in all industries, but we work together very closely, especially hurricanes, snowstorms, breaking news events, that becomes the time when you're really leaning on each other, and then you get really, really close. So I would say that, I miss that the most, because I left television news 6 years ago, and I did it, for the, not because I didn't love it, but because the reality is my kids were getting older and I wanted to spend more time with them and watch them grow. I worked on a morning show, so I was exhausted all the time. So, I loved it, but then you just sort of balance it with wanting to sleep a little bit and have a decent schedule that allows you to see a kid's baseball game once in a while. So now the passion is really helping business owners, and like Chris was saying, is really helping them see the power of what they're doing and helping give them the confidence to share it with the world. It really is pretty powerful. And so then I realized that that's what I was doing when I was in news anyway. When I was working with people that I was interviewing, I realized I was doing that back then. And so now I just do this now, and I do it on my own time.
Very good. I came upon a sort of an accident today, and it was one of the most wonderful things you could imagine in this time frame that we're in. Because a truck had come through an intersection apparently, and must have been filled with produce, and all these crates of corn and so on had fallen off into this intersection, and it was pouring rain. There was a police car, and they put out flares, and a collection of people that had shown up. There were, like the two black guys, two cops, schmoes in their pickups, and everybody's working together to get this corn and so on out of the street. And then there's high fives and hugs, and
Chuck, you've got a piece of corn in your beard right there.
Yeah. Well, it was quite heartening to see that.
You didn't film it
on display, and I wish I had been able to film that. That would have been just sort of, and I think a lot of that was that excitement. These cops, the black guys hugging the cops and everything. It's like that's the antithesis of what we think is going on in the world. But this was very real, and such a great story. And since I'm a writer and I don't. I thought I better share that story, even though
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That would have been something that Chris probably would have pulled his camera out to film, huh? You've seen something like that?
Just need to restage it. We'll restage it.
Mm-hmm. When you guys say edit, so let me get this right. So
It would make a great short film.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it would.
When you say edit, so you take a lot of film and then you take the better pieces of it and you splice them together electronically. Is that really what it's about? To the time frame you're given?
Add music and all that stuff.
Yeah, add music. Is that what edit is? When you guys say edit, is that what you guys mean?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, sometimes you're editing for time. Sometimes you're editing to pull the best story out of an interview. And then maybe you're not limited to a 30 or a 60-second commercial spot, but you're really just, if you're working on more of like a documentary film or a testimonial for a business, you're really just trying to pull the meat out of what that person's experience was. And you may not be as pressed for time, but you're really just, how do I tell this story while we're moving things that might be distracting? Because they could be talking about how great of a business Elite Service was, and how the person working on their HVAC system was just so down to earth and helpful. But then that might remind them of the slice of pizza that they ate with the Elite Service member later. But instead of you're going to cut the part out about how much they love pepperoni, because it doesn't have anything to do with Elite Service, right?
And they did a great job on video. I didn't give them much to work with, but they pulled it together.
So how would you cut the pepperoni out of that pizza story?
I probably need to carry an editor around with me.
And a filter, Dave. Editor and a filter.
Don't you start there, big boy.
Well, there are a lot
But
of
Cheryl
tools.
already squared off.
That's right.
There are a lot
Go
of
ahead.
tools online for folks, especially nowadays, for people to learn about the various aspects of media production. Are there any particular sites? Because even in the job, you got to keep up with the times, and you got to keep yourself fresh on new technology and new techniques and what's, we don't use Dutch angles anymore. We use this angle. What are some of the tools? Are there any sites that you go to that you could encourage other people to learn from?
Yeah, I have a lot of sites and YouTubers that I follow and just pick up tips from. But as far as websites, No Film School is a good one. They're really good for entry level people that are just getting in.
Is that
to
NO Film School?
Yep, like NOFILM School, No Film School. And some of the YouTubers that I follow are a guy named Jacob Owens, D for Darius. If you just start searching on YouTube for what question you have, you're going to be filled with a plethora of results.
No Film School is great. I've watched that. Is Creative Cow still around? I used to go to that religiously. I don't know if you ever go to that.
What was it?
Creative Cow.
Oh, with Larry Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like the godfather of it all, I feel like.
So kind of going with their title, blue collar green pockets. I did a little research earlier, and it was saying that roughly the median, I guess, starting out somewhere around 50,000 for like a kind of what you're doing, Chris. Would that be about the average median for a guy doing the editing and everything?
Yeah, I think that's a fair average. Again, it's going to depend on what market you live in.
Correct.
Whether you're working for an agency, or if you're creating your own projects as a small business.
Okay, that's good money. I mean, considering they could go to a VOTAC for 2 years, and then even if they took another higher education class, whether it be at a college or a trade school or whatever, it seems like I looked up. There's a ton of schools that offer these classes.
Yeah, it does seem like there's a lot of schools that offer just like a quick 2-year course in how to do this stuff, or colleges that are more of like the 4-year degree where you would be learning other things in addition to like your major focus, which would be the media arts or videography or film.
Okay, so someone could say go to a tech 2 years, start doing this kind of freelancing, go to college or whatever they wanted to do after the fact. And are there companies that might even pay for some of those extra classes if they went to like a big production, like a Channel 3 or whatever?
Potentially. I mean, Cheryl might know more about the news side of things, but I know that like in Virginia Beach, there's Studio Center. I know a lot of people that have interned with them and then later gotten jobs with them. Yeah.
I mean, internship possibilities are there. Sometimes they're tied to college. Sometimes,
Right.
not always, but sometimes TV stations will offer internships if they can give college credit in return. But if someone's interested in work at a local TV station, I would just really watch their websites, because they're likely always posting positions for production assistants, editors, lighting, sometimes graphics. And so sometimes they'll train, sometimes they do want experience, but depending on what they're asking for, someone who has a little bit of experience that maybe they've gotten through hands-on experience, like Chris was saying, shooting your own stuff and figuring out how to edit. There's a lot of programs out there where you can really edit a lot of the things that look pretty good. And it's stuff that it's free. It's like just editing programs that you can get for free online. But you can maybe take some of that and translate that into a career that starts kind of at the bottom, but then you can work your way up into whatever you want within a TV station.
It sounds like in your business, Cheryl, there's a lot of, and in all three of these, but Cheryl, in your business, there's a lot of room for advancement if you want to hang in there with like you start small. I always think about this one thing. I do some radio advertising up in Delaware, and there's a guy at a radio station many, many years ago out in the woods. I mean, this thing was out in the woods. Okay, it was nowhere. And it was a talk show radio station. And this guy did weekends, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday sports. All right. And I would go out there on Fridays I did a live interview on Fridays, and I'd cut my commercials there. And I got to know this guy. Then I went to Florida, and years later, and I turned on WPTV. It's down at West Palm.
Yeah.
Turned on West Palm, and this guy's the news anchor. He worked his way from the weekend sports guy at a teeny little radio station out in the woods. I couldn't even believe it. And I messaged him on Facebook, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing? He's like, that's hysterical. I said, I couldn't believe I turned on my TV and you're on here. But now he's the weekend news guy. Came out of the woods up in Delaware. But I know, I talked to another friend of mine that worked with him, and they said the work he had to put in to do that, to get from that little teeny radio station was it's just like you go here, then you go here. You know, he never made it to Buffalo or Peoria, Illinois, but like a lot of people in your business probably do. But he had to go through these steps, and he ended up at this really good TV station. You know,
he worked for it.
They said, that's what this other person said. They said, you have no idea the work this guy did to get that job.
You know what they say about the overnight success, right?
Yeah, right.
They don't see all the years in between the time that they became that overnight success. But there's opportunities.
Yeah, I think most successful people have heard one at least one time, and they're like, boy, you've really been fortunate and lucky. I don't think so. I really worked my butt off is what I did.
And Peyton, you're second generation. So, I mean, this was destiny, right?
I guess if that's what you want to call it. It was destiny to work 80 hours a week. Yay.
Your dad's probably proud of you, though.
He's definitely proud. And yeah, there's, like I said, there are few women that do what I do, and definitely fewer that have done it as long as I have. But yeah, it's not a very conducive lifestyle for motherhood or family life at all. Cheryl, I'm sure you can attest to that.
Yeah, it's hard.
But
Peyton, I'd like to have you working for me if I was a director or a producer, and the reason is your sense of pride in your job is remarkable. I mean, it just
thank you.
It oozes out of you. I think you would be somebody that I would want working for me.
Oh my gosh, that's a really great compliment. Thank you so much.
Well, you can just tell. Well, Jeb,
we are.
What time it is.
Yep, and we are running out of time. So I just want to big shout out, man. This was awesome. I learned a lot tonight. I'm super excited. Like, I wish I could do what all y'all do, but Chris is way too technical for me. Cheryl's way prettier, and I don't have. And
Peyton's way smarter.
Yes. So I mean, I got nothing. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
We'll be 30 years later. Tune in. We'll be right here on the podcast.
This has been really fun, y'all. Thank you so much for having me and all of us out here.
Thanks for your story, Peyton.
Well, I just want to tell all three of you, you're true professionals, and it sounds like you have that passion that Chuck talked about, right, Chuck?
Absolutely. It's great to spend a little time chatting with you folks.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you so much.
And I just threw up one of the videos that Cheryl and Chris did for me up on our Blue Collar site. So if anybody in our area, if anybody needs some work, some production work, these are the ones to call. So I just threw it up there.
Cool.
Get a look at it.
Awesome.
Y'all did a great job. It was you guys.
You guys were great.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks so much for coming.
Care.
Bye, y'all.
Peyton, don't crawl in any holes you can't get out of, okay?
No promises.
Leave a leg out at least.